Hi, welcome to the Elle Russ Show, where I deliver content intended to inspire, educate, and motivate. Engage with me online at elleruss.com and on social media. Enjoy the show. Today, my guest is Kelly Ann Gorman. She is a patient advocate, seasoned podcaster, published author, and business and life coach. And she creates products and services that help elevate your mind, upgrade your business, enhance your life, and welcome you into a positive and uplifting community. You can visit kellyanngorman.com for more. Hey, Kelly, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's start right off the bat because you are also a podcaster. So let's just tell everyone what your podcast is right now, even though we'll connect everything in the show notes.
Absolutely. Thank you. My show is called Everything is Messy Podcast. It just celebrated its 300th episode, 5 years long.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I know you are seasoned as well. So I love being on other shows and doing pod swaps with other podcasters that just have been in this space for a really long time. So I appreciate you having me on your show. And you're going to come on mine next too, for sure.
Yes, so much fun. You know, one of the things we connected on is we both have experiences of getting screwed with a health situation and having to become our own patient advocate. And then we're having to become our own advocate and then advocating for others in that same vein. So why don't you tell us what happened to you?
Okay, so I'm so good at making this very long story short now. It's taken years, but in 2016, I was diagnosed with MS. In 2017, I was diagnosed with neuromyelitis optica, which people call NMO for short. And in the beginning, it used to be a variant of MS, and then neurologists realized it's actually two completely different diseases. But for some reason, I was the lucky one and had both. And something just didn't feel right. But I was living in Las Vegas. I was doing all the treatments. I was inpatient, hospitalized, getting blood transfusions, like the whole nine. And if you're not familiar with NMO, it's basically a disease where you can become blind and paralyzed. Like it could happen right now as I'm talking to you. It's absolutely insane.
Okay, so let's stop there. I want to highlight. I just want to get my head around this. I know because you're so used to talking about it, but does that literally mean in any moment, like you could snapshot, go blind?
Yeah.
So it's not like a slow degenerative thing that you know's coming and you can see the progress. Like it can happen at any moment.
Yes. And it's very different with everybody's body, of course, like any other autoimmune disease, but some people have it more in their eyes, which is like a huge red flag. Like, okay, you absolutely have NMO, but I went through 6 neurologists to get this diagnosis. And it was just like, I had these crazy symptoms like brain fog and nerve damage. Nerve damage was a huge one. And it's just so different with everybody's body. And it's also so rare. So you really need to find a specialist, as with any other autoimmune disease. Like, and my number one piece of advice right now, I have to preface by saying, is like, you always have to get a second opinion. And when you hear the end of the story, like at the end of the day, I had 11. I had 11 neurologists. So like,
let me just dial this back one more time. I want to find more about this NMO. So am I correct in saying like, they misdiagnosed you with MS and then thought the eye thing was from the MS, right? But it wasn't. You just had NMO on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just sort of want to make sure I'm following.
Yeah, it's so confusing. And I talk really fast because it's hard to share sometimes. But,
which I love. I'm a fast talker, but I know your story. So, and for people that don't know, muscular sclerosis, right? So you get, all right. So you then are properly diagnosed with it. Like you have it.
Mm-hmm. And I had it through them doing labs, and oh my God, now I think I've had like 30 MRIs, like all the usuals. You get the x-rays, you get the full panel lab work, you get CAT scans and MRIs and all of that. Lumbar punctures, which are like the most painful thing ever. And so I had NMO. So I was like, okay, so I'm going to be blind and paralyzed, like at any given moment. Like how, and at that point I was living in Las Vegas and I was working in luxury travel, running my own business. And I'm like, so this is going to happen when I'm like running around on the strip, like taking clients off their jet. Like, how is this going to work out for me? Like, it's not. And that's how I got into podcasting, which I'll share later, but it was just crazy. So then I had to get chemo because there's only a couple ways for you to suppress your immune system. And the number one favorite of doctors is steroids. So I basically looked like a balloon for like 3 years and ate like everything in sight, had the roid rage,
like a tank,
like everything. Yeah. And I'll never forget, like I did 5 days straight of IV steroids. Oh my God, that experience. Like I only can say it's like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the blueberry girl, like that's how I felt. Like it's just not even normal or like anything. But what happened was on the last day of my IV steroids, because I denied these MS drugs, because the third neurologist I had gone to for my third opinion in Vegas told me I'm extra special because I have MS and NMO. And he wanted to put me on this MS drug. And he had already shipped it to my house. I already had a nurse scheduled to like give it to me because they were shots. And something in my gut, you always go with your gut, whether it's business or life. And I was like, I'm reading the side effects and I'm like, this is going to kill me alone. I'm like, I don't think I have this. Like everybody is saying, like, you know, of course I joined all these Facebook groups, which is like, you know, a good and a bad thing with other patients, but because everybody's body is different. And then you get like crazy anxiety and depression that comes along with that. But I was doing my research, like everything else I've always done in my life. And I'm like, this drug is not for me. Like I have to figure out if I have NMO. Like everybody's saying you can't have both. Why is this doctor saying like I'm like extra special patient and I have both? It's not your body can't handle both. Like it's just not right. So I turned down the MS drug, and my only option was to suppress my system from all these crazy things that had been happening to me was steroids. So that's how I got to the 5 days of IV steroids. And then on the 5th day, my blood pressure skyrocketed to like almost 300, which is what I was referring to, the blueberry girl. And I got rushed to the hospital. And that's where I met the last set of neurologists for Las Vegas that diagnosed me absolutely for sure, you have NMO. So at that point, I felt like I won the lottery. Like I finally have a correct diagnosis, right? So no more steroids, just heavy meds. Like by that point, I think I was on like 10 different prescription medications, maybe even 12 by that point. I don't even know. But it was chemo. Chemo is the only thing that suppresses your symptoms. And a normal protocol for chemo would be twice a year. But this is not to shrink a tumor. This is for the rest of your life. So chemo for the rest of my life. And I'm like, okay, let me wrap my head around this part now. And so in the beginning, the first month I did every week, I did chemo. And then it was, I forget exactly what it was, but I ended up doing 8 rounds in like 6 months, where the normal protocol was twice a year. So I got overdosed at the same time. Way to make a pretty penny for these doctors. I was like making them so much money. So I did the chemo, and then finally they're like, okay, so nothing has changed. Like you have to stick on the protocol. Like we'll move you to the 2 times a year now, where I was doing it every month. That's what it was. The first month it was every week. And then after that it was every month. And I was just getting overdosed, and it was torture going there every day, but I did it and I powered through it. And then I was like, I need a specialist, because something is telling me like, this isn't for me for the rest of my life. Like this isn't right. Like I just felt it like in my bones, and I would visualize and manifest. I talk about this in my book a lot. And when I was sitting in that chemo chair, like praying I would come back to San Diego one day. And sure enough, I've been living back here 4 years, but I'm like, I'm not going to die from this. Like, I can't be blind and paralyzed. Like I have too much, like, no, like absolutely not. So I like fought my way through it. And one morning I woke up and I was like, yep, I'm done here. And so I called my best friend that was in San Diego, and I said, I need to come to San Diego. Can I stay with you? I literally packed 2 suitcases. I left all my stuff at my house, and I had to get new insurance here so that I could see a specialist. So that's how I met neurologist number 6. So when I met with him, he immediately said, you don't look like you have NMO. Like I can tell you right now, like this isn't right. Like just by looking at me and reading over my chart. And when I say reading over my chart, like I come prepared. I had facts to every doctor. I had my own file. Like I walked in there like I was going to trial. Like do not think.
And by the way, I just want to stop you there and say, that is what you have to do. Everybody do it for any new doctor. I have gone to doctors and I have had nurses go, holy shit, we
Yep.
wish every patient was like you, especially when you got a long history. Have that fucking binder like you do a school report, get the tabs in there and make that shit as clear and as linear as you can.
Yeah, I like absolutely. And the one thing I always say, especially like on my TikTok videos or wherever I'm like preaching this and, you know, filming patient advocacy videos, I'm like, you can't be blaming the secretary, the medical assistant, the doctor. Their job is to hopefully save your life and fix you and make you better. Their job is not to look at typos. Like my 9-day hospital stay when I was admitted, when I left, I was diagnosed with MS. I waited 3.5 hours for the neurologist to get out of somebody else's surgery to demand. I was screaming up and down the halls. This I remember so clearly, even on all the meds I was pumped with. And I demanded them to change my discharge paperwork, because if you were given that MS drug that I denied, it infects your brain and you immediately drop dead. That's the drug that was sitting at my house. That's the research I found out. Because when you have NMO and you take these other drugs, it counteracts this MS drug and you literally get a brain infection and like, you're done. See you later. Bye. And so when you get discharged, what if I got into a car accident or I had to go immediately back to the emergency room and they immediately look at your previous records? What does it say? I have MS. So they're going to give me an MS drug and then I'm going to die. Nope. You're going to fix those 3 letters from MS to NMO. And that's what you're going to do. And the first response out of the nurse, like I have to say, like I'm actually still friends with those nurses on my Instagram that took care of me and that whole entire week. But I had a new one that morning. I was getting discharged. And the first thing out of her mouth was, well, do you carry your paperwork around with you? I'm like, actually, yes, I do. But it's in your computer system. And I'm like, why would you even ask a patient that, first of all? So you have to advocate and you have to have your medical records, you know, put together and organized. And I've been working on a medical product for years that will help with all parties, whether it's the patient, the caregiver, the medical, the legal side, because of this. But you can't blame the doctors for having typos. Like you as a patient, that is your job. And as much as like you're stressed out and you're sick and you're caring for somebody else, if it's with a business or if it's with your children, and whatever way that keeps you organized and on your toes, you have to be the exact same way when it comes to your health, because you're not going to be able to take care of anything else if you don't have your health. So,
and I want to just interject and say one of the most important things I'm hearing here in this story. Oh, I mean, your gut saved your own life.
Yep. 100%.
You just didn't feel fucking right about it for some reason. Everyone was telling you had it. You were like, that had you taken that drug, and then in hindsight, now we know you would have died.
Yeah.
And the only way you really kind of found and concluded and were able to connect the dots is from the 6th neurologist that spawned a little bit of a trail that made you go, oh shit. So again, perseverance and following your gut. I also was in the same boat too, right? With thyroid, like they'd be like, do this or do that. And I remember one doctor, you know, misdiagnosed me with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I saw the ultrasound. It looked exactly like it. You know, it basically people would be like, you're denying facts. But I was like, no, I'm not going to go with this guy. Like what, you know what I mean? And it was a misdiagnosis. It was a diagnosis that came from a soup of a disease state of hypothyroidism that caused it. It was the hyperthyroidism, the cause of it. I didn't have it inherently, you know what I mean? And that's the difference. So I'm so like, wow, dodged a bullet. Literally. Yeah.
It's like you and I are both so lucky. And
you almost died though. I could have died a slow death for sure. But I mean, in that moment, okay. So now you're with the 6th neurologist and you learn this about what could have happened to you.
Yeah. Okay.
And so now he's saying, I don't really think you even have it.
Yeah. He says, okay, well, I need more time to look at all this shit you just brought in. And I'm like, well, I faxed it to like every assistant that's here at UCSD. And here's my file. And he's like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm not messing around. I came here for you to save my life and to tell me what my next steps are, because I'm not going to live like this. I was so pumped with drugs. My hair was falling out. Like it was just awful. And I literally drove to Vegas and sat in the radiology department and waited for the discs, which by the way, if you ever get them, sit there for 10, 15 minutes to get the hard disk in your hands, because the way that I'll show this after, but you just need the hard disk in your hand so that you can give it to the doctor so their team can read it. Reports are not enough. Like, you have to have the physical disc for a proper radiologist to
Great
read.
advice.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't even know that one because that wasn't applicable for what I was dealing with.
For you, for what you were going through. But yeah, you need to, a report is just your 2 cents. What's one pair of eyeballs we're looking at. So my specialist here in San Diego had 18 pairs of radiologists and eyeballs on my scans. So he had his team of 18 neuroradiologists look at all of my scans side by side, perfect scans. And guess what? They were all identical. So one of the ways that I was misdiagnosed was wrong reports. And a neurologist read a wrong report. He didn't put his own eyeballs.
I want to make sure I'm understanding. So let's take us through this a little slower, which is, are we saying that someone viewed the scan and misinterpreted it?
Yes, there was tumors in my brain, but they were just marks.
Okay, so wait.
And some went away.
All right. So so they thought they saw tumors, but they were just regular marks or just a shadow?
Correct.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
So wait, I'm baffled now. I'm sure some of the audience is like, what? Okay. So that makes me crazy because you'd think someone would know the difference between a tumor and a shadow, or like whose job it is to interpret this. And it was misinterpreted that many times off of what? One scan, off of one report. So one report led everyone went off the one report from one guy who misinterpreted this shit.
Yeah. Well, I had about like 17 or 18 at that point, and the ones of my brain, because nothing was showing up in my lumbar punctures. And the only way that they were diagnosing me was with my MRIs of my brain, which they were reading. Well, the reports read that I had tumors there, and then with my labs, and my labs ended up being done incomplete, which caused a wrong read. And all the medications that I was pumped up with, the side effects of them are the same of this disease. So I basically, my body was
it was just it was a domino effect from a misinterpretation of your brain scan.
Mm-hmm. And the drugs I was on.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure everyone listening wants to just go like murder everyone for you. Because no. And I mean,
I've already done all that.
Also, I just want to say I'm like riveted, right? We're all riveted by the story. We're like, where's this going? How's this going to end? But also I want to say you have such a great attitude, and so glad you're a patient advocate, because I can tell you're I don't
mess around.
You don't fuck around. And yeah. Okay. So go ahead.
So, I just want to say that this, wrong read by a radiologist literally just happened to me again a month ago, because they found a mass. I had all this back pain, like crazy health stuff has happened to me in the last couple of months, that I haven't had health issues since this happened. And this was years ago. And so long story short, I had a mass in between my small and large intestines. So I had to get a colonoscopy, and I'm only 43. And when they went in there, the surgeon comes out and always wants to have a full-blown conversation with you when you're on anesthesia, which that I will never understand. But he said, oh, so the mass was actually a valve. And I'm like, so you're telling me a part of my body that belongs? And I'm like,
again, a misread of a turd versus like these sons of bitch. And you had to go through a colonoscopy at an age where you normally would never have to do that.
Yeah. It was insane. So
I hope everyone listening, like if you know people out there, right, who've had stuff like this, please second guess it.
Yeah, you
always
have to.
And third guess it and find a ton of, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And just call me and I'll tell you how to do it, because I'm a professional now. So
exactly.
Going back to the 6th neurologist, I had spent time with him from like August until I think it was October when he said it, because I went through the whole legal battle after this. So I had to go by when he said it. And when I saw anything that he was saying was against the previous 5 was October. And then I believe it was January. Yeah, it was January. Oh my God, that's coming up. That's so weird. It's January something. I forget the date where I got it in writing saying you were misdiagnosed. So then I like went into shock. Like, he can't be right. Like, how is this right? So then I didn't believe him. And so I sought out experts, the best of the best. So I contacted number 7, who is at Johns Hopkins, number 8, who is at UCLA. 9 and 10 were colleagues of the ones here, but in different states. And lucky number 11 was currently in China and called me on my cell phone. And he is the top diagnosing expert in the world and called to confirm that number
you
6
do not have NMO.
Mm-hmm. So I had to sit on that for a couple weeks because my brain.
Well, here's the thing. From the outside, it's like you lived with a health story about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
One, you didn't accept the MS, but the other was still imprinted pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you live through the fear of those things of thinking that's real. And then you find out later that was all fake.
Yeah.
That is rough. I've had it happen to a couple friends with some things. What they were told to worry about the cholesterol, always given statins, all this kind of stuff. And it turns out they're 100% fine, never needed them to begin with. But they lived in this fear of like eating fat. You know what I mean? Like just these kind of things where you have a story or someone else, Holly Perkins, celebrity fitness trainer. I bring her up all the time because she's in her 40s now, but she was on antidepressants of some kind since she was 11. And it was that story of like, well, this is just your brain. Your brain's different. This is how, you know what I mean? And she just kept looking and searching and And then one day, randomly through doing health stuff, realized that she had a non-celiac, but serious sensitivity to gluten and dairy. And once she eliminated those, she got off of antidepressants within like a year. So the story though, for decades. So, and for you this whole time, I mean, what was that like? Oh, it must've been a lot of tears. I mean, a lot of tears at all through we're crying hearing the story.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was so crazy. And the worst part about it was withdrawing from those drugs after the fact. So I had to see a psychiatrist because a psychologist helps you with your head therapy. A psychiatrist helps you with the drugs. So they put me on this plan on how to come off them. And this is when the Heal documentary came out. I'm sure you've seen that on Netflix.
I haven't seen it yet, but I know of it. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have the director on my show. Her name is Kelly also. She lives in Malibu, like close to you. So the Heal documentary came out and it was with Dr. Joe Dispenza and all these people that had these crazy health stories and how they were either misdiagnosed or how they healed themselves. And the first time I couldn't really watch it, I would literally get vertigo and have mini nervous breakdowns because I just have so much PTSD surrounding this whole story.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I need to watch this again. And I watched it in February. I think as soon as it came out, it was January. It was right around that time. So it was thanks universe. You're literally making me watch this and torture myself, but I feel like I need to watch it again. And I watched it again. And there was this patient and she was on one of the drugs that I was on. It's for nerve damage. It's so strong. I forget the name, but it's one of the top sellers in the States. And so she was on the same dose, the same drug. And it took her 1.5 years to get off this. And I'm like, no way in hell am I pumping my body for another 1.5 years with this shit. And I'm like, I'd rather have migraines for a half a year, because why do I want to keep putting small amounts in? Just get it out and I'll deal with the repercussions. That's where my mind was at. So after I saw her story, I was like, nope, I'm time's up. I'm done. So my 6 months of withdrawing, I stopped. I think it was 2.5 weeks. And boy, did my head hurt. I had migraine. I didn't leave a room for 5 days. I needed to be in blackness, pure dark room. It was torture, but I survived. But I also I just can't.
Was that 2 weeks? You said not bad.
2.5 weeks. I did their plan of how to withdraw, in a medical way, and I just wasn't about it anymore. I'm I'm done with this, because every time I would have to take a little piece of the pill or half a dose, it reminded me of being sick, and I'm I'm not sick anymore. So I just stopped cold turkey, and I don't recommend that. And you definitely have to listen to your doctors. or, figure out a plan. Like if you're going to go the holistic route, like I did, but I was like, no, I'm done. And I stopped. And it wasn't until a couple of days where like I started feeling stuff. And then I was in the ER, like every week, something happened to me, like like in my head, in my arms. And it was all side effects of withdrawing. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. So then I met a new set of nurses here in San Diego because I had to get my port flushed every month here. So now I have a new set of nurse friends on Instagram from here, which was amazing. And yeah, that's how I, came off all the drugs. I don't recommend it, but it was pure torture. I mean, even if you do it the way they say, it's going to be torture because you're coming off something that you've been on for a while and it's heavy prescription medication. Like you don't know what's in it, So that happened between like January, February of 2018. So this is like a 2-year story, like of the whole diagnosis, right? But then I had to figure out the legal situation. So this is where the story gets really good. So if you are misdiagnosed in this country and you call a legal team, they are not going to take your case for 3 reasons. Like, just don't, if you're listening right now and you're inspired by this story and you're like, okay, I was misdiagnosed. I'm going to tell you right now exactly what they're going to tell you. So don't waste your time. So number one, there is always a protocol in every state, a statute of limitations. So say you were like, I only had about 1.5 years to pursue legal action from the date you were diagnosed. So like I was saying before, I had to go by the date that the neurologist number 6 said.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He mentioned it in his notes in October. So I have to go by that date. I have 1 year to pursue legal action. Every state is different. So
and it takes a long time sometimes to figure out that you were misdiagnosed.
Yeah, but I was on it. So I was like, no, I went back and forth to Vegas. I pulled records I did everything. So now when you call a law firm, you're going to say, okay, I was misdiagnosed. You have to go through your whole story, which is super frustrating if you're still living through it and really hard, like mentally for you to get through sometimes. Like I'd be hysterically crying and screaming and like, they're just like a number to them, right? Like they feel bad. They want to take on the case, but like, they have no idea what the hell you're really talking about from like an emotional aspect, like the anxiety, the depression, like for you to even tell your story, like I'm good with it now, but when you're searching for help,
you're just immediately in tears. It's terrible.
It is so hard. And they don't understand. Like they just don't understand. So the answers they're going to give you when they say no to your case is 1, you're alive. 2, you're not missing a limb. 3, you're not hooked up to an oxygen tank. 3 reasons. So this whole entire story is on my podcast, by the way. I give you the names of the doctors, everything. So I'm like, okay. And at that time, I had a couple clients that were attorneys. I'm friends with attorneys. I worked in luxury travel for many years. I've multi-millionaires and billionaires calling their friends that own hospital wings. I had like 117 attorneys I had to tell this story to. I think it was actually more than that. That's insane. Not one of them would take my case. Mm-hmm. Not one.
Yep.
And so I was given the advice from an attorney on how you can represent yourself. So here's the best part. I learned the medical malpractice laws in the state of Nevada. I studied them. And when you represent yourself, you have to go after all parties. So all 6 parties had to be sued. So I took it upon myself to do that. And I represented myself in not 1, not 2, not 3, but 6 different med mal cases and closed them in 1.5 years by myself in the middle of a fucking pandemic.
Fucking love you. And everyone listening right now, I know is like, this chick is amazing. This is no different than us watching like Wonder Woman go beat some shit out of somebody. Like, this is great. And a testament to perseverance.
Yeah.
All of it. And I know that's with anything. That's with thyroid. That's with any ailment, any disease, anything you're going through, anything medically, all this bullshit. Perseverance. When you are because again, no one else cares and you cared more than anyone else.
No one cares.
You're like, well, guess what? I'm doing it. And that's where you really find success. And so sorry, continue, but wonderful. Everyone, this is just amazing. I love storytelling.
So I just remember being in the middle of the pandemic. I was very fortunate enough to be my busiest ever because everybody had to pivot their business, right? Shit was closed everywhere. And so me being like in the online space, and how I started my podcasting career was because I thought I was going to be blind and paralyzed. At the end of the day, all I had was my fucking voice. So guess what I had left? I only have a podcast. So I launched a podcast. Everybody wanted to know how to do it. And I turned it into a full-blown production company. And that's what I do for a living now. However, during the pandemic, everybody was coming to me, you know, like in my little bubble on the online space, like my followers, like, what do I do? Like, I'm losing business. I have no clients. My store was shut down. I already lived that life. That's exactly what happened to me when I was in Vegas, when I had to take my entire career and bring it to the internet, because I couldn't run around Las Vegas Strip and fly in private jets anymore because I was going to be blind and paralyzed. So I had to stop and become a business coach and just teach all business owners like how to run their business, because I'm the most organized human on the planet. And I always go with my gut. And if you don't have that, you don't know how to persevere, like you're not going to be successful. And that's just like my opinion on that. But I was coaching people on how to do that. So then when the pandemic happened, I was showing people like, okay, like, what do you have right now? Okay, so let's turn it into this. Like, you have to be creative. Now is the time. You have a computer, you have internet, you can make money. Figure it out. Like, now is the time to really do what you've been wanting to do. You have 5 kids at home. You've never been able to do this. Now you're home. Now's the fucking time. Just do it. Like, what is stopping you? So
go girl, preach.
I just started doing podcasts for like everyone and their mother. So I think I developed like 10 shows alone during the pandemic. And right now I think I'm at like 27. So I just was like preaching to my clients. Like, people would just pay me for an hour call. Like, how do I do this? And I would just like literally give them steps. And I'm like, listen, this, I mean, you can hear like how passionate I am in my voice. Yes. And I'm just like, if you want it this bad, now is the fucking time, because I'm somebody that thought I was going to die every day. So you only have 24 hours. So figure it out. Like, we didn't even know.
Right.
Like, you're in LA.
You're like, I don't even know how much time. I could be like the next hour. I might be midway through a podcast and drop dead like shit.
Yeah. And like, you're in LA, I'm in San Diego. We're like an hour and a half apart, not even sometime. Well, with zero traffic. But like, do you remember when we couldn't even fucking go outside? They're like, you cannot go outside. Like, people were walking around with masks. Like, just to get fresh air.
You know, I was able to sideswipe that because I live in the middle of the mountains and like no one really lives here. So no one's around, no one sees you. That's like, go outside. but yeah, no, if you're down anywhere near a city or like area, yeah, forget it.
Oh yeah, you're screwed. But like, even here, like where I live, I walk to the beach, like feet in the sand. I can be there in like 12 minutes. And even on the beach, like people would social distance and like have their mask on, but like we could go outside, you know, but it like one point it was like illegal. And I literally like put my head down and got to work. And that's when I wrote my book. I wrote it in the middle of the pandemic. I wrote it in a week.
By the way,
tell us to help more people.
I love you. Tell us the title of your book.
So the book is titled Everything is Messy, because it is. And you can read it in about like an hour and a half. It's super short. It's 84 pages. It's a one-of-a-kind publication. And I have to tell you that I was writing a book about my life since 2016 throughout all this health drama. And when the pandemic happened, it just dawned on me, like, why am I torturing myself writing this fucking book of like negativity? Like, this isn't going to help anyone. If they want help, go listen to my podcast. Like, the audio is there. You know, I don't want to write this book. And I'm like, what do I want to write? I want to write something that's going to make people happy. I want to write something that got me through this like awful time. And cooking is always been my passion. And so like I cooked on yachts, I cooked on jets. Like, I just love creating recipes. I've always been like this. And so I started the Chemical Free Cookbook. So I was writing a cookbook. And then when I started writing the recipes, it reminded me of certain times of when I was going through this health drama. So then I started writing chapters. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to put this together? So like, it literally took me a couple weeks to figure out, like, am I going to release 2 separate books, or am I just going to do a one-of-a-kind publication like the rest of my entire career? And make it my own. And that's exactly what I did. So again, don't ever listen to anybody and don't niche down, because you can do anything and make it successful.
Thank you very much. Okay. So,
you have
so much that you said there. This is also like not only a patient advocacy class podcast, but a podcast in confidence. I know everyone is I know my listeners are probably like, oh, Elle's probably love this girl. Yeah. So such self-confidence, perseverance, being your own advocate, and then also not following the herd and stepping in shit, possibly, or not following the herd and being okay anyway. That you went with your gun on what you were going to do. You're like, well, okay, plenty of publishers or people would be like, don't do that. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, fuck it. Like, I'm going to just do it anyway. So
no, you can't listen to anybody. You listen to your gut. I've been like this my entire life. I have another really short story, exactly how I got exactly what I wanted, but the book itself is personal development. So I took the negative and turned it into a positive, and I show you how to get exactly what you want now. Like I always say, and even in my podcast intro, like you can get whatever you want if you just put in the work. Like nothing is going to come easy. Every now and then you get like that little taste, but like if you really want something out of life, like you better learn how to fucking work, because that's how you're going to get it. And so in a really nice way, I wrote a book about it. And then in between there's recipes. So the book and my podcast, everything is called Everything is Messy, and it is, but it's your job to get it organized and stay motivated and just get it together and do what you want. So like, that's the whole purpose of that. In a nutshell.
I love it. So wait, let's just get back to health for a second. So you're fine and nothing's wrong with you.
I'm totally fine.
Yeah. Okay. So God damn it.
I actually just did an episode. I released my shows on Monday now. I don't know why. Like every now and then, like you've been podcasting for so many years. You're like, let's just switch things up. So I'm like, I'll release on Monday. Like it doesn't even matter because people listen to audio whenever. But I'm like, okay, so what day is today? Today's Wednesday. So my last episode, 301, was about my obsession with kava, all my holistic healing remedies, and ashwagandha and like plant medicine, because I try to do everything holistically now. So I just did an episode on that, which so many people ask me like about my supplements. And I'm like, I just need to like list them and record like an entire, like, here's the autobiography of like why I take the supplements I take. Mm-hmm. So I just did that, but I'm like, I'm constantly healing myself. Again, no one's going to do that for you. No doctor, you need to do it.
It's like my tagline, like no one cares more about you than you, and no one's going to do it for you. But I mean, it's interesting because, there's a lot of people that have been in your position that actually had the thing and maybe they recovered from it or didn't or whatever, but still had that experience. It's almost just, it's even more like that you never even had any of it. But what you had to learn for others and what you've learned and even shared so far. And we know, of course, anyone listening who has an issue is going to like go down the rabbit hole of finding more details if they need help personally with this type of journey. But I mean, my God, like, bravo.
But do you know it's
amazing.
The hardest thing about all of that was I shared this entire journey on my podcast. Back then it was called the Happy Workaholic Podcast. That was my old brand. Now everything is called Everything is Messy. But I think the hardest thing for me was, I'm in all these Facebook groups. I've been online for years, like a decade. So I have a following online. People know everything. Like I would be crying hysterically on Facebook Lives. Like every single thing is mentioned on my podcast. So people know my story. Other patients find me. And now I'm in these Facebook groups of all these patients, and now I don't have it, but they still do. And they're like on my Facebook and they're everywhere. And I literally had to delete them because I couldn't this was the hardest part, I think, for me. Like, I just felt so bad, but like, I couldn't see their posts anymore because it would trigger me so bad.
I understand.
Like they have it, they can't see, they just, had another issue and like it pops up on my feed and I'm like, I can't see that anymore. So I literally had to like spend time and delete like all these patients and remove myself from these groups. And still to this day, because this is all over the internet, people contact me and usually they come to my personal Facebook, which is so strange, which I don't, I'm not really like on a lot. I just share my podcast episodes, but I spend all my time on like Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. So as soon as I get like a new request and it's like not spam, I look, it's always an NMO patient. They always come and find me. And just the other day I had this mom, her daughter was diagnosed. She's in Colorado. She like blew up my inbox and I didn't see it for like weeks later, which I don't know why, because I live online, but it went into like spam and I happened to look and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And she was asking me for help. And I'm like, okay, like on a patient advocacy level, because she still thought I had it because it's just, she's watching old content, you know?
Right. Like, and if you didn't get to the end of the story, then you don't know that it was a misdiagnosed thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, so unfortunately, like I was, you know, I say unfortunately, but it was fortunate. I was misdiagnosed, but like, what can I do to help you? Like, do you need contacts? Do you need, you know, like as a patient advocate, like obviously I always say, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a professional patient. Like, I don't need to be sued. But yeah, it's just, I'm so passionate about people taking care of themselves. That's the thing. I feel like their mindset is, oh, well, I have a doctor, I have a personal assistant, I have this and that and that. Like, I've worked for multi-billionaires in this country, and I had to show them how to do certain things because the systems are different when it comes to your health. Like, you have to be your own advocate. And if you don't take care of it yourself, no one is going to do it for you. You have to be organized with your medical records first and foremost. And that is what's going to save your life, because that's exactly how I saved mine. That's it. And if you don't do that, then I don't know what to tell you. Don't call me. Don't text me. Like,
it's my story too. I mean, like, same thing with that. Like, that's why I'm here. We're the same, just different things.
Yeah.
Although I actually have the thing, but still all of the bullshit along the way. And, you know, and this is, I'll just do a brief one on this, because like literally this may be the episode we talk about on your show, but I had to be my own lawyer for over 2 decades with an insurance company regarding my hand and arm disability. And I can say right now that it is better if you are the attorney. I hired a couple of attorneys, and I would look at their letters to the insurance company and I was like, this isn't strong enough. Or like, this is misworded. This could be misconstrued. And they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No, you're not allowed to make mistakes. That's why I'm hiring you. And so then I thought, oh my God. And then I caught an attorney who misunderstood a whole thing that was really effed, and like almost a misdiagnosis, like from the beginning, never caught something that was very, very important to the whole story. And I thought, fuck. And then I called another woman one time who was a specialist and attorney. And I was talking to her about my situation and telling her what I was going through at the time. And she goes, you know, I think you got this. She's like, I think you got this. You don't need an attorney. She's like, and she gave me a couple of hints. And one of the hints she did give me at the time was what we're talking about. She said, listen, because this is why the insurance company was like, well, even though you've given us like 5 experts in 5 different cities in the US, we're going to send you to this really shitty doctor who's not even qualified. That's our doctor, right? They always do that. And those doctors are paid to say nothing's wrong with you, right? And so she's like, yes. And that's a very, also, again, you enter into a world of being in like a legal thriller when you go through something like this, because you start to see the shady side of it, which is that there are doctors in the hands of pockets of insurance companies. And they literally will say that you can go back to work or you're fine, or there's nothing wrong with you, even when there is. And that is so fucked. And I had to wrap my head around that when this first happened, that there were good doctors and bad doctors in this way. And that was just like evil and yuck and ew. Who wants to be exposed to that? And then you have to go fight in that world. So one of the things she said, she goes, when you go into that meeting, she goes, first of all, bring a friend and have them just sit there and observe and not say anything and just be there as like a witness. And I was like, oh, okay. Never thought about that. She goes, and secondly, make sure you have your shit organized, like come in with a binder with all of the things, like, again, like illegal, like you're going into like court. And I was like, okay. And then the other thing that I thought of, which I won't say online, but I thought of another kind of thing to say to the doctor to kind of let them know, like, I will take this to the fucking, like, to the umpteenth degree, like, don't fuck with me kind of thing. But aside from that, she gave me that advice. It was great. I brought a friend who had poker face the whole time, that I organized everything. And I mean, I did prevail. I didn't think that I wouldn't. However, I know how people going in there wouldn't. This guy would look at them and go, this patient's like, they're not going to fight it. So I'll just be the bad doctor today and get my money. Do you know, kind of thing? And it was just, the whole thing was really gross. And you have insurance companies as well that are intentionally inflicting emotional distress, which is a thing you could sue them for, right? Or breach of contract. So it's to be embroiled in a battle when you already have an ailment or a disability or something, and then to be constantly sort of fraudulently attacked as if you don't have it because they do not want to pay, is probably one of the worst things I've been through in my life. Do you know what I mean? It's something that one day I would love to write a book on or do a series of podcasts on the ERISA Act and that law and all the things I went through there. But it's similar to probably all the things you learned with medical malpractice. And again, kind of going through your own thing. So one time I basically represented myself in an appeal against this insurance company and I won. And I didn't need an attorney after all, it turns out. And I think it's almost better if you're smart enough to fight it yourself.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know how the fuck you did that for that long, but when you represent yourself the way I did, you have to go off after all parties, right? So like I mentioned before, I had to go after 6 parties. Mm-hmm. So what that means, if anybody's interested, is I took on the medical side to take their license as well as the legal side. So I played the role of 6 different attorneys. So I had to I had to deal with on a daily basis, the attorney for the doctor, their insurance company, the State Board of Medical Examiners, the paralegals, and the record departments. So I got the names of, there's 2 companies in this country that house medical records for all hospitals, 2 companies. I became friends because I called them like every 5 minutes with the people that worked there and explained my story. And I reverse engineered the entire process. So when I have some 20-year-old paralegal telling me, I'm sorry, Miss Gorman, but this isn't in or this isn't right. And I'm like, actually, here you go. Here's the reference number. Here's the way it was faxed. Here's the way it was uploaded to your online portal. And here's your confirmation. Is there anything else you need to share? Because I'm done. Like, let's move to the next step. And they would fight me and fight me and fight me. And they would snail mail every single fucking document to push you over the statute of limitations and screw you, so that you can't win money. And so I dealt with the State Board of Medical Examiners in the state of Nevada, and I knew their licenses wouldn't be pulled, but I had to go that route because obviously I'm still alive, but I had an autoimmune disease. I'm not missing a little, like, I understand that, like, as angry as I was, that was the hardest part, is like, I had to take my personal emotions, and this is business. Like, I understand, but what you did was wrong, and this is how it's going to go. So in order for the insurance companies and the attorneys of all 6 doctors to, 6 parties, because I had to go after the hospital, the radiology, and then all the other neurologists, in order for them to take me seriously, I had to go after their license.
That's right. So I was going to say, that's the move. That's the move you had to make.
Yeah. So then I had to deal with 6 investigators on the State Board of Medical Examiner side, but then also 6 investigators on the insurance company side from the neurologists. So I had 12 investigators I dealt with on a daily fucking basis. This is like a blur, but I just know that I did it because I recorded episodes on it all, and I have proof paperwork. But it literally is like I blacked it out. But like now I'm talking about it, and I'm like, oh my God, like I remember my rainbow binder. I remember I went to Target and I got like the cutest folders to make this horrific experience like cute.
Like a little bit more positive. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, let's just like get you like the cutest little pink folder for the investigator side. Like I had to do like anything possible to like make this happen. And then I started getting the denial letters, like, you know, and then the best part, you know, you can't, if you research a doctor, the case is closed. So you're not going to find, because the state board has an investigation, then they hire another investigator, then they have the neurologist make their statement, then they have them go in front of a board, and then they make a decision. So when the decision is made, it's usually a closed case. They get to keep their license, which I knew was going to happen, but I had to go that route. And I got praised by these investigators. They're like, holy shit, you're not the attorney? I'm like, no, I'm the fucking patient. And they're like, good for you.
We're totally twinning on that. I had ERISA attorneys actually saying to me, they're like, look, if you're ever in the South Bay, like, we want to meet you. We've never seen anyone manage to fight an insurance company successfully like this for so long. And I was like, yeah.
I was offered jobs in the middle of the pandemic by the top litigating firms in this country. And they're
Yeah,
asking me, I'm on the phone with them for like almost 2 hours, literally sharing this whole story. I need them to take them to trial. And I ended up not going that route because of the pandemic, and I closed it myself. But they were like, how did you do this? Are you seriously asking me that question? Here's my $275 hourly rate. Here is where you can pay. And then I'll tell you how I just did this by myself, because your firm wouldn't take my case on a year and a half ago. And now you're asking me, here's my hourly rate. And you know what? Add a zero to that, because you have that.
In fact, my rate just changed. I just changed my rates in this moment, and they are now triple. Yeah. That's
so hysterical. Now, like, moral of the story,
you gotta have this fire to solve this problem like you do. It's so obvious through you. The passion is so great. And again, like, thank you so much for, again, writing the book, being out there to help people navigate through this and have hope through it, and understand also that they don't have to get screwed, whether they're misdiagnosed or not.
And I do want to say, like, this is the most important part of the story. Like, I know that it's going to be like the hardest, oh my God, I don't want to get emotional, like the hardest thing that you're ever going to do in your life. But just know, like, at the end of the day, like, you're going to be fine.
And we got you, and we understand you know, in different levels, but totally.
If you don't have a supportive system around you, get one now. And if you have no one, call me, because like, you have to have on one hand 5 people.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
And while they're, and like you said, like, you know, the patient forums and stuff are great for when you know, you do need some free advice and stuff, but you have to take everything at face value. You're not being totally individualized. And sometimes it can be a little bit triggering to constantly.
That's hard. Yeah, that's really hard.
And I had to get off those forums at one point a while back too, because also as well, I was compelled then to, like, what am I going to do? Become a moderator? Because then you see something who went through something beginning, and you know the moderators are going to answer it, but you feel compelled to almost help too. And again, it's like, all right, that's just not the path I want to choose right now, full time.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I think it was just, it was a little triggering. It's not triggering for me at all now to talk to people who are suffering. However, in a way, I actually appreciate it, because to me, I think it's like, never forget. I never want to forget.
Yeah.
Although I want to forget. Right. And I'm in the world of forgetting because I'm not sick and blah, blah, blah. And I live a great life, but I don't want to ever forget. I don't want to ever get, you know, because you and I both know what it's like to cry morning, noon, and night, freak out. You don't know what's going on, what's happening to you, what your life's going to be like, what your future holds. And it's so frightening and scary and lonely. And no one can kind of help you. And it's just so it's like, we totally understand that. I mean, I'm crying for you out there if you're suffering right now, but just hopefully you'll take these 2 stories, and I'm assuming most people know mine.
Yeah.
And just realize there's a way out and a way through. And at the very minimum, having it be fair along the way, in terms of all of this, you know, medical crap people have to go through with.
And if you need to get things done, like my closest friends, like they bust my balls about this all the time, because they'll be complaining they need to do a few things. I'm like, well, where's your list? I have a list for everything. It's color coded, everything. And I'm like, where's your list? You need to make a list. Like, my friends have me make them their list. Like the other day, I said my best friend, I'm like, call about the kids' healthcare, call about this. I'm like, wait, why am I doing this for you? I'm like, all you have to do is make a list, get it done, whether it's save your life or, you know, get a new car, like whatever you need out of life, you write it down. This is where the manifesting and visualization comes in, and you make it happen. But you and I would not be where we are today if we didn't put in the work. That's the whole point. That's why I do what I do. Like, it's not going to come easy. Are we lucky? Yeah, but we got here because we put in the work to get us where we are right now, you know?
Well, and I think luck and manifestation, again, there's a little bit of action. Yes, it has to be inspired. When you're sick, there's nothing more inspiring than getting it done. I think you and I both realized, obviously, and a lot of people do along this journey, that it's that moment when you're like, oh no, no one else is going to do this. Like, like nobody really cares. Nobody's fighting. Like, no one's on this. And again, no one is. You're like one of many patients or whatever it is. So, and I know I'm grateful we had the time to research it and go through it to be able to figure out what we did for other people. So that's obviously one of the blessings of it. And I know there's probably so many more for you in this whole story. And Oh, and what a great Hollywood happy ending.
I know. Well, here's the best part. The best ending is I get messages every day that I've helped save patients. So after my legal case was done, I went to my podcast and I recorded a show. I gave all the names. I've yet to receive a cease and desist. If you Google, you will see every doctor's name. You will see all of the comments and threads of patients that have thanked me, and there are thousands.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And that's the whole point, like helping save lives of others. That's it.
That's absolutely the point. And we're so grateful for what you do. We'll put everything in the show notes, but you can go to kellyanngorman.com and tell us. So you've got the podcast. Everything is Messy.
Everything is Messy podcast. I have my book, and I just announced that the audiobook is coming out March 1st, 2022, and Times Square may have a little thing to do with that. And everybody's asking me about an audiobook, and I'm like, why? Do you know how like a process to self-publish? But there's a lot of people that like refuse to read the book. So I've had hundreds of messages.
You know what? We'll have to talk after this because, I just did my audiobook and I was late on it, which is terrible. And I'll tell you why. Because it was hypocritical of me because I almost exclusively listen to audiobooks because I have the hand thing. So holding a book in my hands is annoying. Sometimes I do read it on Kindle and I like to read. But again, I love being in the car or I'm on a walk and I'm listening, especially if it's read by the author. And so we'll talk about that because I'll tell you how that can be quickly done, but you should definitely do an audiobook. People are going to keep bugging you about it like they did me.
No, I am. It's like halfway. So it's releasing March 1st. So that's there. And then if you want to learn more about me, besides my personal, you can go to everythingismessy.com. And that's where all of my business, LinkedIn, podcast, and personal development programs are. And I have a merch line, which is apparel, home, kitchen, office decor. I did that during the pandemic.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with helping people get to where they need to be or want to be. Like now, like put in the work, I'm going to help you do it. So whether it's launching a podcast, organizing your medical records, I'm a Gemini. Like I've never done one thing my entire life. So like why start now in my 40s? And that's it. That's it. End of story.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and the world and everything that you do. I appreciate it. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to have you on my show so soon.
Yeah.
Hey listeners, over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.